Hello, fourth graders. Thank you for doing one of those first steps of things you need to complete in writing today. This is going to be a very important task that you are going to be asked to do today because we are preparing for our final assessment of showing what we know in writing. We have been spending all year working on writing and perfecting our narrative writing skills. We're getting to that point where it's time to do an on-demand and show what you know. Tomorrow, you are going to be asked to write a narrative story in 45 minutes. The goal during that writing time is going to be for you to write a complete story as best you can in that time frame. We're going to take some time today to plan that writing and get organized so we can use our time tomorrow to just write. So let me make it clear. You are not writing a story at all today. You are just planning that story out. When we think about our narrative writing, we think about using a checklist and thinking of all the parts of our story we need to have. So we need to make sure our story is starting with a lead and an introduction that helps the readers understand the characters and our story. Let's not forget to use transitions and tell our story in order so our author, or I should say our reader, knows exactly what is happening and what time frame to think about their writing in. Make sure you're using paragraphs and organizing your writing scene by scene so it is not one big paragraph. We want to make sure we're elaborating, showing what happened to our characters, and telling our story by adding extra pieces to add a little flair, such as figurative language, action, thoughts, and other things that connect to our character. We're going to also do our best on spelling and punctuation. So, as part of that planning, we want to make sure that we have a solid story idea ready to go. You're going to take some time today to independently complete a story map for a new fiction story. Just like we've done before, we want to think about our introduction and how our story is going to start and climb up our story arc into that climax. As we've done more learning this year, we're coming to realize that we might be able to identify a conflict and resolution. Think of this as also some struggles and motivations. You can also consider the theme to help guide your story. What do you want your character to learn or discover in the story? What life lesson will happen? So, it's going to be your job today to complete this story arc and think about how you would like a story to go. If you feel that you can be successful in filling out a story arc and you understand how you want to climb your story all the way to a climax, you can go ahead and stop this video now and get to work. If you would like a little refresher and reminder on how to complete a story arc, please keep watching as I develop a story live with you now. I want to make a story that connects to something in my life, a story that I wish existed in the world. I think what I'm going to talk about is somebody who is super duper excited because they're going to spend a day with grandma. Who doesn't love spending a day with their grandma? So I have a major character and my main character. Let's say her name is Beth. And Beth is 10 years old. Her grandma is also going to be a major character. She's just going to be called Grandma. She's super old. She's probably like 85. Some minor characters might be Beth's mom, dad. And I'm thinking Beth might also have a little brother. All right, so I have some of my characters thought up and I'm thinking of a setting. My characters are definitely going to be at home. They're going to spend some time in the car on the way to Grandma's house. And then they're going to be at Grandma's house. All right, so now that I kind of have some ideas on my characters and I've done some thinking about that, I want to think about how my story is going to go. Specifically, what are the struggles and motivations of my character? And what is my character going to learn in this experience, this trip she's going to take to Grandma's house? I'm trying to think of some issues that I might have had with my brothers and sisters when I went to Grandma's house. And I'm thinking she's really going to be fighting her little brother for her grandma's attention. So I think she's struggling to get Grandma's attention. She wants all of Grandma's attention. So actually, I think I put that in the wrong spot. I would say that's her motivation, is to get Grandma's attention. So I'm just going to add some arrows to shift that. So now I'm thinking about all the things that could get in her way of getting Grandma's attention. Her little brother, maybe even her mom and her dad. So now I'm going to think about this story. In the introduction, I kind of want to introduce why Beth is going to Grandma's house. So Beth prepares to go to Grandma's. Because they are going to bake cookies. So I ran out of a little bit of room, but I definitely made it work on the page here. Now as I start climbing up the story arc, I realize my introduction is where I'm going to set the scene and introduce that problem. The initiating event is where I kind of show that first experience she has in just wanting to be with Grandma and have all of her attention. So now I'm thinking in this initiating event, she wants Mom to help her, but Beth's mom is probably going to be too busy helping her brother. So Beth's mom doesn't help her pack for the day. She doesn't help her pack her bag to go to Grandma's for the day. Notice how I just wrote like a quick little sentence about that. I'm not writing this super long part. I just want to kind of get myself an idea of how my story will go. So now I'm thinking next, okay, she's already annoyed because her mom won't help her pack. Then the car ride, they hit traffic. And that's less time she can have Grandma's attention. So she is stuck in traffic and she's mad. Okay. Then I'm going to have them get to Grandma's house because I really want to have a few scenes where she's struggling to get Grandma's attention. So I think when she gets to Grandma's house, she's going to run into an issue of Mom and Dad won't stop talking. So they talk to Grandma way too long. So Beth is going to experience, I think, a struggle here and do some whining maybe about, Mom and Dad, you need to leave. Then I'm thinking her brother is probably going to be a little bit younger. If she's 10, I'm going to say maybe he's 6. Maybe brother plays with Grandma first, and she doesn't want to play that game. So that gets in the way. I'm thinking after all these things that she's experienced that bother her, I'm thinking Beth is starting to feel a little frustrated. Maybe she starts to cry. So now I'm thinking, okay, as she gets upset and cries, I think she's starting to get to the point where Grandma might realize that Beth wants some of her attention too. So Beth talks to Grandma. About how she wants her attention. As I jump to that big event where they finally get to bake cookies, I'm thinking to myself, do I need a number 8 or can I jump to my climax? So I want to remind you that you don't necessarily need to have all 8 parts. You could end up stopping at 5 or 6 and that's okay. So as I'm thinking about her talking to Grandma, I'm thinking this is going to be the beginning of a resolution for this. I think in that moment, Beth's grandma's going to tell her, you could start making the cookies on your own. You don't need me. You're a strong, independent 10-year-old. So I think the climax is grandma lets her start on her own. I think Beth is going to think that's cool, that she gets to be independent. So notice how I'm thinking about it, but I'm not getting every idea on the page, just the gist of it. So grandma lets Beth prepare baking on her own. Maybe she's getting the cookie sheets out, I'm thinking. If it's pre-bought dough, which I think it would be, maybe she's going to start shaping the dough, right? Beth realizes she doesn't need all grandma's attention. Because she can be independent. And then in the end, they finish together, and Beth still gets grandma's attention in the end. So as I was reading in here, I realized a good theme for my story could be sometimes it's better to be independent, or sometimes you need to be independent, and that's okay. So now I'm feeling good. I have a lot of strong ideas, and my story arc is finished. This is something you need to complete for your own ideas for your own story. This is just a tip on how to get going on that. If you want to add a title to your story, you can go right on ahead. And don't forget the author is you. Happy planning.